Welcome everybody. My name is Dan Fagan and I'm going to present to you my organizational change plan for the Corona Fire Department in developing our fire captains into effective battalion chiefs through training rather than having to wait for our captains to become battalion chiefs and gain on-the-job experience and on-the-job knowledge and shortening the gap that currently exists. So a little bit of background about our organization is we respond to emergency incidents with fire engines and fire trucks that consists of a captain, an engineer, a firefighter medic, and a firefighter EMT. These fire engines and fire trucks work together for 48 hours as a single unit where they respond to these emergencies, they train together, they work out together, they cook together over 48 hours. So there's a very organic way that these people can develop into future ranks effectively because there's a lot of ways throughout those operational periods to have training opportunities where we get to see how people of lower ranks develop and how they work through their thought process in acquiring this knowledge of working at a higher rank. There's a gap that exists between captains and battalion chiefs because there's a separation. Battalion chiefs respond as a single unit to multi-unit responses. They have separate living quarters and separate work areas than the rest of the crew, so it has to be a very intentional process for battalion chiefs to develop captains, and I hope to change that. So what currently exists is a cultural change and an organizational change that I hope to change. Uh, so when we hope to promote, we are issued a task book of our future rank, and we have to complete a lot of these tasks to get signed off by our superior officers to show proficiency in completing these tasks. Once this task book is complete, we submit it and we take a test and we become qualified to work at that rank. So as I talked about in our background, it's very easy for captains to develop other members of their crews because they work so cohesively and they're so close knit with these lower ranks. That separation between battalion chiefs and captains requires us to be more intentional with our training, and that process needs to be changed through a cultural change and an organizational change. So starting with our cultural change, battalion chiefs' roles and responsibilities exist where they get a lot of injects throughout the day where they have to make decisions. And my proposed cultural change is they would consult with captains and throw these problems and injects at these captains and see how these captains handle these incidents. And then it provides instant feedback into the thought process of how captains think as a battalion chief. An example of this would be an employee suffers an injury and he has to seek treatment. So that battalion chief, when he is contacted with this problem, he would consult the captain. The captain would provide his thought process on how to handle it, and then the battalion chief could give him feedback right away. So that process will slow down for the battalion chief in handling these issues, but it allows for these captains to develop and see the thought process in how these situations are mitigated, and it is a way to show proficiency. These captains can gain knowledge as a captain rather than wait until they're a battalion chief and handling these problems, and then they allowed to adapt and overcome with the issues that are provided to them with a battalion chief. So that is my cultural change. It's just more intentional feedback from these battalion chiefs in handling these problems and giving them to the captains. And then the captains work through these problems and get feedback from the battalion chief throughout the course of the day. So that will slow the process down for the battalion chief, and it will create more work for the battalion chief, but it will develop these captains to be more effective when they are a battalion chief. The next process is through organizational change on live fire or live incidents. So currently what happens is anytime we're responding to these multi-unit responses with a battalion chief, the first two captain will give a report on conditions when he arrives on scene. He will give his crew direction and he will gather more intel. But when the battalion chief arrives on scene, he will assume the incident command position. He will identify the incident objectives, and then he will hand out division group supervisor responsibilities to incoming units. And there will be a separation where the captains are with their crews, they're handling the objectives given to them by their battalion chief, and the battalion chief will be at the command post by himself running the incident. The battalion chief is very busy running the incident and making agency contacts with other agencies that are involved, such as the Edison gas company, the building department, the duty chief, and the public information officer. So instead of assigning the first due captain to a division group supervisor role as we currently have, this next slide shows how he would slide that first due captain to the operations section chief role, and the operations section chief would take over the incident objectives and handing out these objectives to the division group supervisors and run the operations from the beginning of the incident to the end. The operations section chief would be in the command post with the battalion chief, and the battalion chief would still maintain control of the incident. He would still be responsible for contacting Edison, the gas company, the building department, the duty chief, the public information officer, but the actual incident operations would fall to this captain, who's the operations section chief. That ops chief would, like I said, run the entire incident, but he would be in face-to-face communication where he would be giving instant feedback to that battalion chief on how the incident is being ran. So what this would look like is the first due captain would still do the same report on conditions when he responds to these incidents. He would give his crew direction, but then he would slide to that ops role, and his crew supervision would then fall to another division group supervisor, allowing that first due captain to run the incident operations. So that ops section chief would then delegate all those other roles and responsibilities, get instant feedback from the battalion chief on how the incident priorities and objectives are being obtained, and it would allow that battalion chief to see how the captain runs the incident as a battalion chief prior to becoming a battalion chief, where it would give on-the-job training and experience to that captain and further develop him in live fire or live incidents in a way that we currently don't have. Now, not all incident will fall into this parameter. There are going to be certain instances where that first due captain will have to remain with his crew because that provides the ultimate level of safety for his crew. But in these instances where there's not immediate supervision needed for his crew, such as a attached garage, where that first company is responsible for attacking that garage fire, and there's not a life safety component or a life safety threat component in this incident, it allows for that captain to slide to the operations section chief and allow him to run the incident from cradle to grave to give that instant feedback. So that is my proposed organizational cultural change, is there has to be a more intentional process of our battalion chiefs offering injects to these captains on a day-to-day basis to gain knowledge about their thought process and the way they handle incidents. And then also on these live fire incidents to give organizational change. We're bringing that captain in to the operations section chief role, provides that on-the-job experience for these people to run the incident from cradle to grave, rather than wait until they're a battalion chief to run these entire incidents. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you have a great day.